All right, in this video, we're going to show you step by step, without skipping any steps, in great detail, how to perform a gear-driven cam, a cam plate, and an oil pump upgrade on your Harley-Davidson with a Milwaukee-Eight engine. So you've likely landed on this video because it is the best and most detailed video on the subject matter. I know it can be very frustrating trying to piece together 10 different YouTube videos that skip steps and don't show you in great detail. So that's exactly why we made this video, everything for you right in one place. Welcome back, Bikeaholics. Ryan Urlacher here, lovebuddybiker.com. Always thank you. That's right, you, for checking back in. So before we get wrenching, there are some things that you'll want to know. And just understand that if you are going to upgrade to a gear-driven cam, which is a more robust system, you will need to check to make sure that your pinion shaft runout is within specifications. And of course, we show you exactly how to do that in this video. If not, no big deal, because you can just stick with your chain driven. The labor for this project can be very expensive, so save your money. There's no need to have your dealership or a local shop do this. Guarantee with this video, you can do it right in your very own shop or garage. Understand that you will need just a few specialty tools for this project, and we've listed all of those with links in the description below. And in our video, we'll show you exactly how to use those tools. Now, we used an S&S kit for this project. We have no affiliation with them, but there are other brand kits, and they really all install the same. But you will want a kit with quickie push rods. With that said, what do you say we get wrenching? But before you do, make sure you hit that subscribe button and bell icon every time those are hit. Another biker joins the revolution. We'd love to have you be part of it. All right, first thing he's going to do is just remove his saddlebags here. And he's just removing those two stock bolts there, those clunky ones. And we definitely got to get these replaced with our RICKRAK saddlebag safety bolts. They're much easier to deal with, and they actually secure your bags better than these stock ones. I'll link to those in the description below if you want to upgrade. And you can go ahead and get that saddlebag up and out of the way. All right, so now we're going to get the floorboards out of the way here on this right side. 5/16 hex head is what he's using. There's one bolt in that front support. Get that front support bolt out of the way, and there's one bolt in the rear support there. And he's supporting that floorboard with the other hand because that's going to come off there. All right, next we're going to take the air intake off here, and that's just a little Velcro strip there that keeps that on. Just peel it off. And with the Torx, that's a Torx T40, he's going to go ahead and remove that center bolt. And now he can go ahead and remove that cover. All right, and with a 3/8 inch socket, he's going to start removing 3 bolts here. There's one at the rear of the air cleaner there. And he'll move up to the front there. There's one on the bottom and one on the top. And he can go ahead and then pull the filter off there. All right, now he's going to go ahead and remove his crank breather line there and just pulls off. And he'll go ahead and remove the crank breather off the other side there. Again, just pulls off. All right, and with the 7/16 socket there, he's going to go ahead and remove the front crank breather bolt there. And he got that one backed out. And he'll move up to the rear crank breather bolt. Same thing, 7/16 socket. And get that one out of the way. And with a 5/32 hex head, there's 3 bolts to remove on the air cleaner plate here. And there's one bottom one there. And he's going to move up to the top rear bolt. And then I'll move up to that top front bolt. And with those bolts removed, he can now remove that plate. All right, so now we're going to remove the exhaust system. The first thing he's going to do is remove the right muffler here. There's a 1/2 inch bolt there, and then one to the rear that he's going to work on here. And just moving and breaking that rear one there. And with a 5/8 inch socket, he's going underneath here. That is your exhaust clamp. Clamps the muffler to the header pipes. And he's just getting that loosened up is all. All right, now we can go ahead and work this muffler back and forth. He's just wiggling it. You can also twist it just a little bit. You can also put some lube up there, penetrating lube if it won't break loose. But looks like he got it there. All right, so now he's going to start removing his heat shields. That's a 5/16 socket there. He's just got a nut driver, and they're just hose clamps, and there's quite a few of them. He'll have to go around here and undo. And on the back is the hose clamp there. He's just going to disconnect it all the way. All right, he's just working on another one here, and yours may be in just a little bit different places. It really depends on what exhaust you have and where the heat shield clamps are, but just find them all and make sure you loosen them and back that hose clamp all the way out. And he's just working on another one on the underside there. All right, now he can remove that crossover heat shield there. He got those hose clamps backed out. And he'll move up and remove the rear header heat shield there. again, with those clamps all the way undone. And he got those hose clamps on the front header heat shield there, and he'll remove that. All right, just with a little lube there, he's going to spray it in there where the crossover goes underneath the bike, and just let that sit while we're working on some other things. All right, and with a 1/2 inch socket, he's just going to loosen that bolt there. That's just your exhaust support there. And get that nut off there. Okay, so now he's working on that crossover clamp there. There's a 9/16 socket he has on that. And he's just going to get that good and loose. It doesn't need to be backed all the way off. All right, so now we're going to work on the rear header here. There's a flange up in there. And of course, there's one in the front too, but they look the same. And those are 1/2 inch nuts on the studs there. He's going to go up there with his wrench and start loosening these two. Again, this is so we can get our exhaust all the way off the bike and out of our way for this project. You got one of them off there, and he's going to go to that other one. Okay, and again with his 1/2 inch socket, he's working on that front header. Of course, where it bolts to the head there. Same thing, 2 nuts on the studs. Got that one backed out. And then he's going to move around to the other side of the bike for the other one because it makes it easier to get off. All right, so the easiest way to get this other one, again, is to move to the other side of the bike, and he's going to have to use a wrench. It's real hard to get a socket up in there, and it's just a 1/2 inch box end wrench, and you kind of got to just work that one off there one turn at a time. All right, and so now with everything loose, he's going to work on getting that exhaust out of there. You can see the flanges there are loose and sliding down the front header there. And you kind of got to just work around to the rear like he's doing in the front. Sometimes it definitely helps to have a second hand to help you loosen this whole system and get it off here. And don't forget, we still have 2 O2 sensors on wires that we're going to remove. With a 9/16 box end wrench there, he's going to remove this O2 sensor from the rear header. All right, finish that one, and he'll do the same to the front header. And with that one removed, he can get this whole exhaust system out of the way. All right, so now he's going up to his main oil engine drain plug. And he's got a 5/8 socket there. And he's going to be backing this oil plug out because, of course, we want the engine oil drained. He's got a pan underneath. And there is no better way to work on motorcycles than on our beloved Titan lift. This is our 1,000-pound lift. All of our Titan lifts are available right in the law-abiding biker store. And I'll link to those in the description below. We'd love to get you hooked up with one and get it shipping your way. As you can see, he got the plug out, and we're just going to let that engine oil drain. It's helpful to take out your oil fill cap so that it helps everything breathe and drains quicker. Okay, so all the oil's drained out. He's going back up there with his oil drain plug. And don't forget to check out our very popular oil change and routine maintenance videos. We sell the heck out of those. There's no reason to be paying dealerships the amount that you pay them for those. We will show you how to do it. We've got some for video for the Milwaukee-Eight and then the Milwaukee-Eight and newer. So it doesn't matter if you have the old twin cam or the new M8. You are good to go, and we got you covered. And I'll link to those in the description below. Okay, so now we're going to want to expose the push rods here. And these are just covers that are on the outside. And the top is actually the piece that holds the covers in place. You can see there's a little deal there. You stick a screwdriver in it, and you can twist and kind of pull down on that collar there and get that out of the way. And he'll do the next one there. Again, just stick your screwdriver in, twist, and kind of pops out of the way. And he's just going to go up here, and on the front jug, he's going to do the same thing. And those are all out of the way now. And now you can see that releases that tube, and you can actually slide it up, exposing the push rod there. And we are not going to reuse these tubes or the clips that we took off there. We're going to use what came in the S&S kit. So he's pushed these tubes up here, and you can see that exposes the push rods there. And ours are staying up pretty good, but there is a little trick if they do start sliding down. He's just got a piece of baling wire there, bent it, put 2 hooks in it. You can use a paper clip if you want to, and just bend it out. And he's going to hook it under the bottom of each of the tubes there. And he's got a rubber band, and he can just put it around the nut up top there, and that will keep them up and out of the way for us. All right, and another great accessory to have with our Titan lifts is one of our mini jacks. And I'll link to that in the description below and put something on your screen here. We'd love to get you hooked up with it, but we're going to have to get that rear wheel up off the ground because we're going to have to turn it to get this jug here, or piston in top dead center. All right, so now he's going to take a spark plug out. There's 2 on each head, but we just need to remove one. And this is to make it easier to actually turn the engine over here. And that's a 5/8 inch socket that he's using. Again, one plug out of each head is just fine. Already got that rear one out there. Move up to the front one. He'll pull the rubber cap there and wire and get this one out of the way. Just finishing up on that front one. And if you haven't seen our free video on replacing your spark plugs and gapping them, I will also link to that in the description below for you. All right, and so with the plugs out and the rear wheel off the lift, he's gonna go ahead and turn the rear wheel and just work on getting this bike in 6th gear. That will make it easy for us to turn the engine over. Okay, so we're working on the rear jug here. In a moment, Lurch is going to start moving the rear tire. And what I'm looking for is top dead center. Basically, there won't be any pressure on either rod because they're not actually pushing on either the exhaust or the intake valve. And so as he starts turning it here, we're going to watch. And the other thing you can do is go in there with one hand on the rear tire, and you can actually have your other hand and move it just a little bit. Basically, you want to get it so those push rods are loose, and you can actually turn them, you know, counterclockwise or clockwise in their position. All right, so what we're going to do now is Lurch is going to be on the rear wheel, and he's going to be turning it, of course, in the forward position here in a moment. And you can see both front and rear push rods exposed there. All I did is put a little Sharpie marker on them. That's just so I can see them better when they're going up and down, because I'm kind of going to be advising him where they're at. And so what we want to do is we want the rear push rods to be on the base circle and the front ones on overlap, which means when we do that, the front ones won't have any pressure on them, and then we can cut them. And so we're gonna get a little more in depth here and kind of show you what we're looking for. All right, so before we get started here, just a couple things. You got 2 push rods on your front cylinder and 2 push rods on your rear. Both inside ones are your intake and both outside ones are your exhaust. And so we basically want, right now, we want this rear push rods at base circle on the cam, which means these would be on overlap, thus having no pressure on them. And we're going to show you how we're going to do that. So Lurch, in a moment here, he's going to start turning the rear wheel in the forward position, and we're going to start moving things. And I just put these red marks, of course, it helps me see him move a little bit better, but he's going to start turning it, and we're going to watch what's happening here. So you see this right here is going up. That's your intake, and now it's closing because it's going down. And he's going to keep turning that rear wheel. And you can see this front one's working, but what we're worried about is right there. That started to move. He needs to back that off a little bit. And he's going to kind of get these in a neutral position. Basically, this right here, this exhaust side is closed, and this is just ready to open the exhaust port. And the way you know if you're at base circle on the rear here is if you can reach up here and turn both of these. And so I cannot. I can only turn this one. This inside one's not, so we need to do another revolution, and we're going to look for the same thing. So he's going to go ahead and continue turning, so our exhaust is opening all the way up there. And now our intake is going up, you see right there. And now it's going down. He's getting real close. So our intake side is going down, and we're just going to wait till this exhaust wants to start opening up. And there it goes. And he's going to back that off just a little bit right there, somewhere you want those kind of neutral. And now I can come up here, and I can easily turn both of these push rods, which means this is on the overlap and this is on base circle. And then we're going to reverse that, but we'll show you that in a minute. All right, so now that we know that there's no pressure on those front 2 push rods, we can take our bolt cutters and go ahead and cut the push rods. There's one. He'll slide that out of the way. And he'll commence to cut the other one there. Go ahead and move the top portion, and then he'll pull that bottom portion out. All right, so now what we're going to do is just the opposite. We're going to make sure the front cylinder here, the push rods, if they were here, were on base circle, which means the rear would be on overlap, thus no pressure on either of these push rods. And the way we're going to do that is just put my fingers down in here on top of the tappets. I can feel them, and I'm going to feel for the same thing for this intake and exhaust side to kind of be in the neutral position, and then I'll test it to make sure we're correct. Both of these push rods should be loose. So he's going to start turning the rear wheel. So I feel the exhaust side coming up, and he's just making little movements there, and that exhaust is just about all the way down, and I can feel these to see when they start spinning. This one's spinning, but this one's not, so that's all the way down. The intake is just starting to come up, And so he's going to come up with that intake. And now the intake's starting to go down. And I'm waiting for it to go all the way to the bottom there. It's all the way at the bottom. And I'm going to wait for this exhaust one to start moving in the neutral position. I still can't turn this here. Now both of these are tight, so we're going to do another rotation here. He's coming up with exhaust. Exhaust is all the way down. All right, and so now intake's coming up all the way. And it's going down now, which means it's closing. I'm going to wait just till this exhaust starts coming back up here, this one, or until I feel it move. It's going to do a little bit more there. All right, and so there we go. We found it again, and the way you confirm that you're in the right position, there's no pressure on these, as you want to turn them. So it can be a little finicky. You just got to work with your partner and get these, of course, in that kind of neutral position and get the pressure off these. And now we can cut these just like we did the front ones. All right, there's just some O-rings we need to remove. And there's 4 of them in your tappet blocks there. So we're just going to get rid of those because the kit we're using comes with new ones. So he'll get all 4 of those out. All right, and then moving up inside the head, there's 4 more O-rings, of course. He's just using a little dental pick there to remove those. And he'll do the same to the front head. All right, next we're going to remove the cam cover. That's a 3/16 hex head. There are 9 bolts around this bad boy that we're going to be backing out here. And he's just backing out that last one there. All right, and then just with a rubber mallet, he's going to give this cam cover a pop. Break it loose there, and he will get it off. Just make sure you have your oil pen underneath because you're going to lose some fluids. And just real quick, we'll get right back into your video. As you can imagine, a lot of man hours and expenses go into keeping this channel going strong. There is a way you can support us by becoming a patron member. I will link to it in the description below. There are benefits for becoming a member, such as t-shirts and stickers. You get access to the private Facebook group, which is a troll-free zone. It really is nothing but bikers helping bikers in there. You get access to live video broadcasts and chat podcasts early, premium videos up on request, and of course, access to those ride, meetup, and events. We appreciate you considering becoming a patron member. Let's get back into your video. All right, next with a 3/16 hex head, he's going to work on removing these tappet block covers. There's 4 bolts around each one, rear head and front head there. And on that one, he's just using a long extension on a ratchet. And the inside ones may be just a little bit finicky to get out, just because they're jammed up against the fins there. So he's just using a hex head 90 there and basically a 1/4 turn at a time there. All right, he's just working on getting that last bolt out on the rear tappet block cover there. And get that out of the way there. We'll work on the front one. All right, he got all 4 bolts out, and he can now remove this front tappet block cover. It's being a little bit of a bugger, so you can just hit it with a dead blow hammer and break that loose. Now remember, there are gaskets on here. We're going to remove them because our kit has replacement gaskets. All right, now we're going to work on taking the anti-rotation tappet cuffs off. He's got a 3/8 socket there, and there's just 1 bolt on the front one and 1 on the rear there. And he's just finishing up on that one there. All right, with that bolt removed, you can now get that tappet cuff out of the way, and we're going to replace those. We have new ones in our kit. And now he can remove that front one there. All right, now he can go ahead and pull all 4 tappets out there. And he's just pulling that last one out of there. And of course, we're going to be replacing these with new ones in our kit. All right, so in a moment, we're going to remove 2 bolts here. One from the cam gear and then one from the crank gear. Now they do make a special little tool, and it's a little hard plastic, and it can jam in there between the gears because we don't want it to turn, just because we have to break the bolt. We don't want to fight that. We don't have that right now, so what we did is just put the wheel down on the ground on the lift, and we can break it from there. So he's going to go in with his 9/16 socket there. And you can see it broke fine even with just the wheel down on the lift. He's going to move down to the crank sprocket there. That's a 1/2 inch. And that one broke just fine too. And then just backing both of those out, of course, with his fingers there. And he'll finish up there with the cam gear bolt. All right, now there's 2 bolts here, and with the Torx T27, we're going to remove those 2 bolts from the cam chain tensioner. So one at the top there. And I'll move down to that one at the bottom. There we go. We got finished taking out the cam chain tensioner. All right, with everything removed, you can now slide the cam gear and crank gear off of there along with the chain. All right, so he's going to remove 6 outer bolts on the cam chest plate here. and they're 3/16 hex head. So the ones that go around the outside, they kind of stick out. They aren't recessed, basically. Those are the ones you're looking for. And your oil pump, of course, is on the back side of this, and that's what those other bolts are for. But once we get these 6 outer ones removed, it'll allow us just to pull the whole cam chest plate and oil pump out as kind of one unit, so to speak. And he's just finishing up here on that last one. And with those removed, that should free this unit up. All right, so next he'll pull the washer off here. And with all 6 bolts removed, he can now remove that cam chest plate along with the oil pump that's bolted to the back side there. And there's an O-ring down in there. We're going to go ahead and grab that. A replacement one comes in the kit. And now he's going to go ahead and reach up there and pull the cam out. All right, so he's going to take the original bolt there and put it back in the end of the crank shaft there. And that's so we can go ahead and turn the shaft over. Now we have the rear wheel up off the lift. It's in 6th gear, so it'll make turning everything over a lot easier, but he's just going to tighten that down there. All right, now we're going to take our gauge here. It's a RUNOUT tool. And if I haven't mentioned anything we talk about in this video, there are some specialty tools. We will try to link to all of them in the description below for you, so check there. We'll also be doing an article on the Law Abiding Biker website. Once he gets that in place, of course, your tool comes with these little thumb bolts there to get that gauge secured in the proper place. I'll tighten those down. All right, so now he's got that wrench on the end of the crankshaft there. What we're going to do is he's just going to start turning. And at this point, we need to zero the gauge. So all he's doing is looking for the needle at the high spot where it is the highest. And you can see it went high and now it's going back down. So he's going to go back up and find that highest point of the gauge. Once he finds that, he's going to go ahead and set the dial to 0. And now the gauge is zeroed. So on this Milwaukee-Eight, we're looking for less than 5/1000ths of an inch of runout. 3/1000ths of an inch or less is really good, but at least less than 5. This is a pretty new bike, so we should be good. But he's going to start turning it now that it's zeroed. And what he's looking for is, it really doesn't matter which way the gauge goes, to the positive or negative side. You can still measure the marks. And you can see it going about 1/1000th of an inch maybe. So this crank is really good and not a lot of run out. So we are going to upgrade because of that to gears, gear driven cam. And if you didn't have it within specs, you would want to make some decisions whether you want to stick with chain driven or you could of course replace the shaft. All right, you can see he's pointing to it there. That's what we're going to be working with. Removing inner cam bearing is what that is, and we will replace it with a new one in our kit. We'll show you how to remove it. All right, so now we are working with our inner bearing removal kit, and there's different manufacturers of these. We'll link to it in the description below. But this particular plate, you want the window up, so that little cutout there up, but the plate only goes one way, and the holes won't line up that way, so he's got to flip it around. And once you do that, 4 holes will line up, and of course it comes with bolts. All right, now that we know which way the plate goes, he's going to take his collet there. It's threaded, and of course the plate's threaded too. And on the inside there, he's going to start threading it through. And he's looking at the other side. He wants about 1 inch to 1.25 inches of that showing. All right, so now that that's threaded in there, you'll see that's the main bearing removal tool. You'll see how it's flared at the end. It has lips on it. And basically what that does here in a moment, he's going to push that through the bearing, and those lips basically will catch the inside, very inside of the bearing. And in a moment, we'll show you, we'll start pulling, and that will essentially pull the bearing out. And so what he's going to do is go ahead and insert this. And again, that's why you want about the 1.25 inch showing through there. And then he can go ahead with a dead blow hammer and pound that through. And you'll see he knows he's through there because he'll show you the play in the plate. He can push through and push that plate right up against the case. And that's a little slop there. And then he can pull back and make it tight. So he's going to thread that until the plate goes into the case there. And those holes are lined up, and now he can use the 4 thumb screws there, or thumb bolts, and get those in the holes here to secure this plate. Okay, so this also comes in your kit. It's a T-handle rod. Basically, he's going to push that through as far as it will go. It kind of catches up there a little bit. Just make sure it's pushed all the way in. You can use a hammer if you want. You really can't go too far on that with this tool, because it'll stop it from going too far. But basically what that's doing is that rod is going into that flared portion, and it will assure that the flared portion will stay out and those lips will be attached to the inner side of that bearing, so we can go ahead and pull it. And now he's going to take a 5/8 wrench there, and he's going to start turning this. And you can see he's turning it counterclockwise. And as he's doing that, that bearing is going to be pulled out. And as the bearing's coming out, it's getting much easier to turn there. He's probably about 15, 20 turns in. And he can go ahead and back it out with his fingers the rest of the way here. And he's looking inside there, make sure the bearing's all the way out. And he's going to go ahead and back his thumb screws out there now because the bearing's pulled. We'll get that plate off here. All right, he's getting that last one out, and he's, of course, supporting the plate with his other hand. And now he can go ahead and pull that out, and you see our bearing is pulled. All right, and so now we can go ahead and pull that T-handle rod out of there. So before we press the bearings, he's going to take the collet out of the plate here. All right, the reason we took the collet out there is because he's going to put the bearing driver in the end there, and to get it seated in there, we're going to have to use a hammer. All right, and so we're going to actually leave the bearing on the tool. That's the way you use it. It'll keep the collar from spreading when we are pressing the new bearing. And get it seated into place, and he'll go ahead and screw the collet back into the plate there. So now he's just going to thread that through the plate, and we want about 2 3/4 inches of thread showing on the other side there. You just got a tape measure, and he's just going to get it close. So he's got the new bearing in his hand. He's going to grab a little bit of oil out of the case there and just put it around the exterior there. All right, so this is our new bearing. You'll want to make note to put this in on the tool the correct way. One side is rounded and the other side is flat with writing. That flat with writing side is going to go to the outside, which means it's going to set up against the tool here. And so that smooth or rounded side with no writing will go to the inside. And now he's going around each one and just going to snug it down. All right, so now he's going to go ahead and turn the collet clockwise there. And he's kind of looking up in there to make sure that the bearing and everything is lining up as he's turning that in. And it should if that plate's in the correct position there. And he's turning it up there just until it starts to seat and everything looks good. We can go ahead and put a wrench on this. All right, now he's going to take that 5/8 wrench and he's going to go ahead and start turning this clockwise. And at some point, you can't see it, but it's basically going to stop in there and we won't be able to turn it. That's when the bearing actually seats and is all the way up against the case there. And he's getting pretty tight there and he can't turn it anymore, so he's not going to force it anymore. That means that's seated in there. And he's just taking a look up inside there and just making sure everything looks good, and then we can double check it when we get the plate off there. Using his wrench, he's going to turn that counterclockwise, just back a little bit of the pressure off there. Looks like you got that there. Now he can go ahead and remove his 4 thumb bolts there. And once that last one's out, he can go ahead and pull the plate. And now he's just looking up in there. It's strobing because of the frame right here, but making sure that everything looks like it's seated. All right, so now he's got his new oil pump, of course, that came in our kit. It's zip tied together, the inner and outer portion. He's going to go ahead and clip that zip tie. We're going to take this bad boy apart because we want to make sure it's all clean. There's no debris in it from shipping or anything. You wouldn't want any of that up in your oil pump, so that's what he's going to do. He's going to separate it here. All right, so he's going to take his rotors out now, and we'll show you how to put these back in properly. So he's inspecting it, and there's no debris. Otherwise, you'd want to clean it up, blow it out with an air compressor or whatever. All right, so now he's just got some parts assembly lube. He's working on the inner portion of the oil pump there. He's just going to lube these parts up. Now, this particular rotor for the inner part of the oil pump really doesn't matter which way you put it, so he's just going to set it in the channel there. All right, so it doesn't matter on this inner rotor which way you put it, and you'll see it has relief cuts in it. You want to make sure that goes down, which will be facing towards the engine. Also, there's flats in that he's going to point to here. And you want to make sure those are in the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock position of the way the oil pump sits. And so you're just lining everything up there and looking pretty good with those flats in the 12 and 6 position. If you find value in this completely free video and believe in my mission to help as many bikers as possible around the world, please consider supporting us by shopping in the Law Abiding Biker store for all the specialty tools shown in this video, along with the cam kit itself. And there are savings to be had, to include no tax for non-Washington state residents and free shipping on orders over $100. And unlike the big corporate stores, we're real everyday bikers who genuinely care about this community and about taking care of you. And I'll place links in the description below to everything, along with other opportunities not only to support me, but to get involved with this awesome community. All right, so these pins are currently stuck in the outer portion of the oil pump. We're going to move them to the inner portion. Once those pins are in place, you can just grab his metal plate there and, of course, line that up with the pins and drop it into place. Now we've got the outer portion of the oil pump. He's going to remove those rotors, both of them, out of there. And he'll inspect that, of course, make sure there's no debris in it. And he's just going to separate the two rotors there and lube them up with some assembly lube. All right, and of course the larger rotor here, it doesn't matter which way it goes. Seat it in the channel there. This particular rotor, all you have to worry about is that the flats are in the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock position. There we go, he's just getting that lined up there. All right, now we can go ahead and attach the outer to the inner portion of the oil pump there. All right, now the other side of the outer portion of the oil pump there is removing the rotors. Same thing, inspect and lube them up. And again, doesn't matter which way it goes on that particular one. And again, this one, the only thing you have to worry about is getting the flats in the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock position. All right, so your kit's going to come with new O-rings. That particular, the thicker of the two O-rings, is actually going to end up going on that spigot coming off the oil pump, but we're actually going to put it up inside here. And it goes on the lower portion there. You're going to see he's putting just a little lube on it. And we'll actually put it up in there, and then we'll push the pump into that channel and the O-ring. There we go, he's got that O-ring seated. All right, so he's just turning his rear wheel. You see that pinion shaft turning. He's making sure the flats on the shaft are in the 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock position, making this easier. Now he's going to take his alignment tool. Again, we'll link to this in the description below. He's going to put it in there. Of course, it's got two flat spots on it. And he's going to make sure, as he's pushing that through, that all the flats all the way through are lined up. And you can tell that everything's lined up when he gets that tool through to the other side. Looks like his tool is all the way through, and he's got all the flats lined up. So he's going to leave the tool on there for now, and now he's going to go ahead. And again, those flats on the shaft are up and down, and he's going to get it lined up. And as he's putting it on the pinion shaft, it will push that tool out there. All right, looks like you got it lined up basically there. And you don't need that tool, but it certainly makes it easier, that alignment tool. And now he's just putting pressure in on that pump. We're trying to get that spigot pushed into the channel and up against the washer. And you see what he's pointing out there. You'll know it's in far enough when you've passed those. And basically the oil pump is to the inside of those, so to speak. So he's just using a rubber hammer now. He's just going to do some light taps around this thing. Again, we're trying to get that seated down in there and that spigot up into the channel. But you can see he's going around, trying to get that pump down even. All right, and we've got that oil pump, looks like all the way in now. Again, he's going to point to it. The blue oil pump is a little bit past the outer portion of the case there. All right, so now with some assembly lube, he's going to that inner cam bearing. He's just lubing up the inner race there. A little lube in there. All right, he's got his new cam there. He's going to take some assembly lube and put it on both ends. He's going to put the cam in. Of course, the bigger end, he's going to show you there, goes to the inside. Smaller end goes to the outside. It's the only way it'll fit. Put it through the inner bearings there. Now he's lubing up the actual cam plate there, where both the camshaft and crankshaft pinion shaft are going to go through there. And now he's going to go in with the thinner of the two O-rings there, get a little lube on it. And he's going to take that thinner of the two O-rings, he's got a little lube on it, he's going to put it right in the channel there. And now he can go up with his cam plate there and get it into place. Looks like he's got it all lined up there. All right, so we're going to reuse these bolts. These came out of the original cam plate, 3/16 hex head. And there's 6 of them. He's going to put in, just get them started, the outer ones there. And you can see how they're numbered, 1, 2, and all the way through 6. That is the rotation and the way they want you not only to put them in and get them started, but that is how we will tighten and torque them down. The ones with the letters there are going to be the bolts for going into the new oil pump, but we won't do those quite yet. Just the outer bolts are what we're working on now. All right, and just finishing up with number 6 there again, just getting these started there. And if you didn't mention, we've got blue Loctite on all of those All right, now that he's got those 6 outer started, he's going to go in with those inner bolts. Now, your kit comes with 4 new bolts here that go into the back end of your oil pump there. And just a reminder, those are letters A, B, C, D. And again, that is the order that they want you to put them in. And he's just getting all these started. And of course, they've got blue Loctite on them. And he's just getting these started too. Again, he's not cranking them down, just getting them all seated in the order of the letters, of course. All right, so now he's got his torque wrench, and he's going to go to those outer ones, the 6 outer ones. And of course, he's going in the order that they're numbered. 90 to 120 inch-pounds is what he has his torque wrench set to. And he'll just work his way around, again, in the order of the numbers. All right, so before we torque the oil pump bolts down there, he's going to go ahead and, of course, the flat spot was up on the pinion shaft there. And he's going to rotate it 2 full rotations and put that flat spot back up at the top. And really, we're just making sure that everything's lined up with the oil pump by doing that. All right, now he's moving into those inner bolts, the ones with the letters. Of course, those are your oil pump bolts. And torque specifications are the same, 90 to 120 inch-pounds. Now that he's got those torqued, he's going to go ahead and turn everything. Again, 2 full rotations just to make sure nothing is binding up and everything's operating smoothly. All right, and so because we're transitioning to a gear drive cam, we're going to put the oil block-off plate there, right over where normally your chain tensioner would go back there. And there's just 2 bolts. This all comes in your kit. And that's a Torx T27 he's using. He's getting those seated. They do have blue Loctite on them. We put it on there. All right, and he's got his torque wrench there set to 120 inch-pounds is what he's torquing those to. And again, if you were sticking with chain drive, that's where your chain tensioner would go back there. All right, so he's got his 2 gears that come in the kit because, again, we're transitioning to gear-driven cam. Of course, you've got 1 gear for your cam shaft and 1 for your crankshaft. He's just putting some assembly lube on the inner portion there to help them slide on easier. All right, so he's going to go on with the new crankshaft gear there, lettering out on this one. And you see he has the flat to the very 12 o'clock position. And as you'll see here in a moment, he's going to point to it. There's actually a mark on there on one of the gears there. And that's going to coincide here with the cam mark in just a moment, but flat side up. All right, so this is the new cam gear we're putting on, and this is actually made for the Milwaukee-Eight or a twin cam. On one side it says TC for twin cam, in and then out, and then we want the actual Milwaukee-Eight M8 facing out for this particular engine. You'll notice that there's a keyway there, and there's a keyway, of course, on the shaft itself. Now that key is flat on one side and tapered on the other. The flat side goes up, the tapered side goes down. On the shaft there, he's just putting it in place, as you'll see. Once he does that, he can go ahead, and of course we put the keyway in the 12 o'clock position, and he's just going to line it up there. Once he gets it lined up there, he pushed it on as far as he could. And also, just to remind you that there's 2 marks. There's a mark on the bottom of the cam shaft gear, and there's a mark on the top of the crankshaft gear, and those need to line up. But if you get everything else right, they should line up. And now we're going to have to press the cam gear onto the shaft. All right, so your kit comes with a new bolt for the cam gear and a washer. And he's not going to put any Loctite on it yet. What we're going to do is put the bolt in. He's going to start threading it in. And we're going to use the bolt to press the cam gear all the way onto the shaft. After that, we'll take the bolt off, red Loctite it, and then proceed with torquing, which we will show you. And so with his 5/16 hex head, again, he's just going to start turning this bolt. And again, this is just to press that cam gear all the way down on the shaft properly. All right, so he's got the cam gear pressed on. Now we're going to do the same with the crankshaft gear. And you are going to reuse the washer, but you get a new bolt in the kit. And so he's going to thread that on there. And with his 1/2-inch socket, he's going to use for this one, he's going to crank that down and make sure that's pressed all the way on there. And now he can go ahead with his 1/2-inch socket and back the bolt out and washer from the crankshaft gear. And with his 5/16 hex head, he's going to go ahead and back this out. And we do have the rear wheel of the bike down on the lift. so that those only turn a little bit and you can get those bolts tightened up as we need them. All right, and red Loctite on both these bolts before we put them in for the final time. And he's going to go ahead and finger start the crankshaft gear bolt there, and red Loctite on the camshaft bolt there, which he's going to start. And now we can get these torqued down to specs. All right, and with his torque wrench set to 24 foot-pounds, he's going to go ahead and torque that bolt on the crankshaft gear there. All right, and going in on that top one there with his hex head wrench, he's going to torque this one to 35 foot-pounds. And again, we have the wheel down on the lift, so he can do this. If you had problems, you could also apply the rear brake. So now we've got our gears installed, and they come together there, as you can see. So what we have to make sure of is we need to check the backlash to make sure it's in specifications. Basically what backlash is when he changes directions with that gear, he's going to turn it one way and turn it the other way. There's just a little bit of play in there before it engages. You can rock it back just a little bit. That space is your backlash, and so we've got to measure that again to make sure it's within specifications, and we're going to show you how we do that. All right, so what we're using is a dial gauge. This is the same dial gauge we use to check the runout on the pinion shaft, and this base to it is we'll link to all this stuff in the description below for you guys, but this has just got a magnetic base. We've got it on our Titan 1,000-pound mini jack. And then it's got a flexible arm that you can lock in all different kinds of positions. And so we've put the dial gauge up there, and I'll actually zoom in here for you so you can see this better. So there's our dial gauge, and we've just kind of coming in at an angle there. And basically, it's just kind of at the top of one tooth there, or right on the crest of one of the teeth there. And again, he's going to go ahead and turn this. Now, our specifications, we want to be within 0.0005 and 0.002. So basically that would mean on that gauge, when he checks the lash, we want to be within one tick a half tick up to 2 ticks, somewhere in there. And so he's going to go ahead and turn this and check that lash. And we're getting about a half tick. You want a little lash, so that's really good. We're at the low end of where the spec should be, so our lash is correct, and we can move on with this project. So now we're going to go back on with our cover, and he's going to put one bolt through there, and then your kit comes with a new gasket, and he will seat that into place, putting it over that bolt there. Little blue Loctite on the bolt here, and of course we'll put blue Loctite on all 9 of them as we put this cover back on. And he's going to go ahead and prop that up there and get that first top bolt started with his fingers. And getting things lined up there, he's going to go ahead and go in with one of the bottom ones there, and he'll go around and finger start all 9 of these again, blue Loctite on each. All right, with a 3/16 hex head, he's not tightening these down, he's just going around and seating all of them. There is a particular pattern you want to do with it, and we'll show you that pattern when we're actually torquing them next. All right, so a moment, we're going to torque these down now that they're all seated, but we're going to show you the pattern or sequence they want them torqued in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right, so he's on his number 2 there, and our torque wrench is set at 120 inch-pounds. All right, and these torque wrenches are awesome torque wrenches that we have in our kit. We've got a 1/2 inch and a 3/8 wrench, foot-pounds, inch-pounds, all that good stuff. But you can hear they're audible, and they actually give you a tone as you're leading up to final torque value. And you can also see it on the screen. Very, very nice to have, and I will link to these in the description below if you're interested in picking a setup. All right, so we've got some different things set up here. We'll go through it in a moment, give you a couple different options, but essentially in your kit, of course, comes the new tappets, and we're going to need to make sure those are filled with oil. All right, so he's just getting the tappets removed from the package there. And this is a handy little jar we got. We will link to it in the description below. It also has a little carrier, tappet carrier, if you will, so you can lower it down into the jar. Again, link in the description below. But there's a little more to the jar than that. We'll show you in a minute. All right, now he'll just lower all the tappets into the jar there with the holder. Now, what a lot of guys do is just fill the jar with oil and let it sit overnight. That will suffice. But if you want it done quickly or you're doing multiple projects, you can get this jar and it will just take a limited amount of time here to make sure they're full. And we'll show you how we're doing that with this jar and a vacuum pump. All right, so you want to fill your jar with motor oil. That's 2050 AMS oil. That is all we use in our bikes. It's available right in the Law Abiding Biker store. Link in the description below. It's what we put in all three holes, the engine, primary, and trans, and we've tested it for many years. And you basically want the oil an inch over the top of the tappets there. All right, just going on with his lid, you can see there's a valve stem on top. All right, so what we have here is just a vacuum pump, and this is great if you've seen our hydraulic clutch or brake bleeding video. These are handy just to have around. I will link to this one in the description below. We've used it a ton, and we definitely recommend it, this particular vacuum pump. But you can see the other end, he went ahead with one of the connectors and hooked it up to the valve stem on that jar. All right, so he's going to open the valve on the vacuum pump. And they say about 15 to 20 minutes, but basically what you want to do is wait till all the air bubbles are out of the jar. And you could also just kind of cant that, turn it a little bit to help to make sure that those tappets are getting filled with oil. You definitely wouldn't want to put tappets in without being filled with oil. You'd have serious problems. So we're just going to give this some time and see if we can get all the bubbles out of there. All right, so we know our tappets are filled with oil now, and all four of them, we're going to go ahead and place them in the holes there. And just make sure there's flats on each side of that. Each tappet, and we want the flat portions to the front and rear of the bike. All right, you're just going in with the last tappet there. All right, here are your tappet cuffs. They come in your kit, of course. One says F, one says R for front and rear, so he's going to go ahead and put those on. Okay, so he's going to go on with the rear cylinder tappet cuff there and follow it up with the front one. Or he's going to start securing the tappet cuffs there. These bolts come in the kit, little blue Loctite on each. He's going to get them finger started here. All right, and with a 3/8" socket, he's just tightening those tappet cuff bolts down. Not all the way, just seating them, and then we'll torque them to final specs. All right, he's got his feeler gauge there, and you can see how it goes to the top side there of the tappet on the flat spot. In between that and the tappet cuff, that's a 2/1000 of an inch feeler gauge blade there. So make sure that's inserted in there before you tighten down the bolt. All right, now with his torque wrench, 100 inch-pounds. He can torque that to, and again, his feeler gauge is in there. All right, and he's just torquing that back one down, 100 inch-pounds. All right, so now he's on the rear wheel there. He's just gonna turn it a few times, make sure nothing is binding up there with the tappets now installed. Looks like everything's running smooth. All right, before we put the tappet blocks back on, of course, they come with new gaskets, the kit, so make sure you put it on the front and the rear there. All right, now with the gaskets in place, we're going to go on with the tappet blocks. And you can, either tappet block will go on either front or rear, it doesn't matter, but they do go one direction to get everything lined up. You'll know when you're putting them on there. And of course, he's starting a bolt in there, and they come in the kit, all the new bolts with thread locker already on them. All right, with a 3/16 hex head, he's just going around. He's just going to get these all seated, and we'll torque them at the very end. And he's just going on with the rear tappet block there. Same thing, get all the bolts in. All right, now he's going around with his torque wrench. 140 inch-pounds is what he's going to torque each of these bolts, so 8 of them for the tappet blocks here. All right, with a torque wrench, it can get a little tight when you're torquing the ones down next to the fins there. You can see he's got the torque wrench. He just put a little swivel on it and a long hex head wrench. That way you can get in there. All right, so for each push rod tube, you've basically got 3 different size washers that come in the kit. You've got a thick one. You've got a larger, wider, thin one at the bottom, and then you've got a third medium-sized one. And we're going to show you the appropriate places that these go. All right, so the thickest of those O-rings goes, those go up in the underside of the heads there. And he'll get that situated. And we're just going to do 1 tube and 1 rod at a time here. All right, and the wider, thinner O-ring goes right inside the tappet block there. And he's lubed each of those up with just a little oil as he's putting them in there. All right, so these push rod tubes come in your kit and all the parts. We're going to show you, they all assemble the same, each one, and we're going to show you how they go together. In his hand there, he's got the aluminum colored piece there, that's the upper cover, and he will take that collar there, and you'll see how he's putting it on there with the open side down there. And then you're going to have to reuse your spring from your original push rod tubes, and he's going to put that up in there, and it fits up inside that sleeve. Next, he's going to take his washer, comes in your kit, of course, and slide that up against the bottom of the spring. Last, he'll take a lubricated O-ring. That's the third O-ring that we haven't used yet, medium sized, and it goes up against the washer there. Then the lower cover, which is black, that flared portion, that's where the actual aluminum or upper goes into the lower there. And of course, that other piece down there that's protruding, that goes into the tappet block. And now where the outside tube is going to go in push rod, he's putting that O-ring up in there. He'll put the other one, of course, down in the tappet block. And then we'll assemble the other push rod tube. All right, so in a moment, the side we're working on, push rods, we're going to have to get to base circle. And this is a cam. We want to show you what that actually means so you know what's going on inside a little bit. And so you can see on the cam, there's lobes. He'll pick a lobe there, and you can just imagine one push rod lifter actually is pushing against that. And as it goes around to the lobe there, the high point, that's actually pushing up on the lifter, the rod, thus pushing, opening and closing your valve. And then we want to get it so it's all the way around to base circle, and that's the very low side of the cam. So when we're doing that, that's actually what's happening inside. All right, so he's spinning the rear wheel, and basically we're going to be working on the rear push rods. And so you can see those front ones, we're trying to get those. We want to get the rear push rods to base circle, or the cam at base circle. And so an easy way, if you're doing it by yourself, is just to push two of your cut push rods. And you see right there, he got it to a point where one is coming down and one is going up. They're almost both moving, one down, one up at the same time. He's just rocking the rear wheel a little bit. That means that front is on overlap, and that means the rear now is at base circle, and we can go ahead and commence installing our push rods. Okay, so before we actually put the quickie push rods in, we want to go over just a little bit of nomenclature on them so you kind of understand them and how they work when we're putting them in. They're quickie push rods because they'll break down here, and so and allow us to put them in without taking the top end of the motor off. So basically, that's got a lock nut there. He's going to back that out, and this is how they come to you in the kit. So we're just going to put that down there, and then that actually, the lower part of the push rod there, actually it'll thread all the way out if he wants, but he's actually going to thread it all the way in. Before we install this, you're going to need that so that we can actually get it into place. And so he'll thread that all the way in until it actually unthreads, and then he'll be able to push the lower into the upper there. Now the other part is the female, and it's actually connected to the rod. So although it turns, it actually, if you turn that, it will turn the whole actual upper push rod there. So that's kind of how they work, and that'll make more sense as we're installing it into the bike here. All right, so now we're going to put the quickie push rod. It's collapsed, and we're going to put it into the push rod tube there, and you'll see how he's doing that. The bottom of the push rod goes at the bottom by the flared portion there, because that's what's going to go into the tappet covers. All right, so when you're putting this in, of course, you're going to have the bottom collapsed all the way, and you'll want to hold that just because if you let it drop down, he'll show you, he's going to pull it out. You would drop the nut down, and that would go in below the tappet covers, and it'd be hard to get your fingers in there to get it out. So just hold all that assembly up, and then we'll show you what we're going to do from there once we get it in. All right, so he's going to go in with the rear one, the rear head, and the one closest to the fins there. It can be a little bit finicky, and you really want to go in like he's going. Try not to put it in an angle, and you're feeling for a sweet spot up in there where the push rod gets positioned. And once you find that, you'll see that you'll have plenty of clearance to get it down in there. All right, so now he's going to push the push rod tube up into there, and he's going to use our little baling wire and rubber band that we made originally here. He's going to secure that onto the bottom of the push rod tube and up around one of the nuts there That'll keep that out of our way. Okay, so now the trick is that, remember that nut is loose, and if he drops that, or to drop that down, it's going to go down kind of into the tappet blocks there. And so what he's got to do is get that lower rod, the thread started, because remember we unthreaded it and pushed it all the way up in there. And so he's pulling that down, and then he's got to get his fingers in there and start turning the lower push rod and get those threads started. All right, and that's a 1/4 inch wrench. You can use that. It's kind of hard to get your fingers in there, but you turn it left, clockwise basically, and that is gonna thread it down, and hopefully you can get those started. All right, so now he's backed the lower part of that rod out enough to where he's got exposed threads, which just enough to get his lock nut at least started, so that it doesn't drop down in there. All right, so next you're going to see how he's moving it up and down. We've got play in there. We want to adjust this to 0 lash, which means it won't move up and down at all. So we're going to keep backing that lower rod out now until we get 0 lash. All right, so obviously the skinnier your fingers, the better for this. It's tight, but if you need to, that bottom wrench is a 1/4 inch, and he's able to turn the top female nut that's attached to the upper rod with his fingers now. But if you need a wrench on that, it's 7/16. But all he's doing is adjusting it and holding the bottom there, trying to get the bottom rod down so he gets 0 lash, and it looks like he got it there. Okay, so now that we have 0 lash, we need to actually adjust the push rod so it sits on the valve correctly. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to compress the actual lifter. So where the push rod goes down onto the top of the lifter, of course it's hydraulic, we're going to compress that and give it some time to bleed. We'll discuss that in a minute. But the way you do that is he's actually going to put a mark on one of the flats on the female nut there. That's part of the upper tube. And you'll know why in a second. That we're going to have to rotate this a certain amount of flats to get the lifter to compress a little bit, and that'll let us know where we're at all times. So the S&S adjustable quickie push rods have a thread pitch of 32 threads per inch. This means that 1 complete turn equals 0.031 inches of change in push rod length, and 1 flat is 0.005. So make sure you check your specifications for the kit you're installing from S&S. And these documents didn't actually come to us with the product. We will link to this document in the description below for you. But basically they want us to compress the lifter, the hydraulic lifter, an additional basically 24 flats. So that's why we marked one of the flats. Each one of those is a flat, or 4 complete turns basically, of course, because there's 6 flats would be 20, or 4 complete turns would be 24 flats. So either way, but he's going to start doing that, and that'll get us adjusted right. All right, again, that 1/4 inch wrench on the bottom, and he's got his 7/16 on the top there. And of course, he's going to turn that top tube counterclockwise, and that's going to get that bottom rod to start pushing down onto the top of the lifter. And of course, he's got it marked, and so he's counting 24 flats or 4 complete rotations. All right, so he's got that 4 complete turns or 24 flats, however you want to do it. And now he's going to take his jam nut and make sure that's with his wrenches locked up against there so that it won't change position. All right, so now he's got his lock nut tightened on there. Now we're going to do the other push rod on the rear cylinder in the same fashion that we did that one. The thing you'll want to note before moving to the push rods on the front cylinder is that it can take 20 to 30 minutes for the actual lifters to bleed down. We need those to bleed down before we move on. By bleeding down, it'll take pressure off the top of the rod there on the valve. Everything will be set correctly. And you can also reach in, and when both the front rods turn, they won't right now because they haven't bled down. But when they're bled down properly, both rods will turn, and that way you know that you're good to go to move to the front cylinder. Okay, we got the other one put in there and it's adjusted, and now we're just going to wait for both of those. He's going to put, of course, lock that jam nut up against there, and we're going to wait for these both of the lifters to bleed down till we can turn both push rods, and then we can move to the front. All right, so he's on the rear wheel again, turning it. And again, remember, we're trying to get the front cylinder now on base center. The way we do that is to get the rear cylinder on overlap. And we got marks on those push rods. You can see them. And you want to get it so one's starting to go up and the other one's starting to go down, almost moving simultaneously. And you can just kind of get the sweet spot there. And once you get that, we know the rear is on overlap and the front is on base center, and we can install those push rods. Now we're going to put the tubes and lock them in place. And so as you can see, he's putting the bottom first into the tappet block. And then that silver portion, he's going to slide up into the bottom side of the head there and get it seated. He's just using a screwdriver to kind of push on the lip and make sure it's up in there good. And then he slid that collar down, and now we can go in with our clip to lock it all down. He starts with the top, and you got to do multiple things here. He's basically going in and prying down on the lower portion of the tube while he's also pushing in on the clip that locks it until he can get it into place there. Just be patient so you don't scratch up your tubes and clip there. And you can see how that locked into place. And so there you go. Good to go on both those. All right, so he's got the front push rods on. Everything's buttoned up. Of course, before we completely finish and actually fire the bike up, he's going to go ahead and rotate just to make sure everything sounds good and nothing's binding up. And now we can put some things together here. All right, and don't forget, go back in with your spark plug. And we just took, there's 2 on each cylinder. We just took 1 out on each. So he's going to get those fingers started. And just finish snugging it down with a 5/8" spark plug socket, both of them. All right, and of course, do not forget to fill your engine back up with oil. Check for your particular bike's capacities on that. And again, AMS oil, it's all we use in all 3 holes, engine, trans, and primary. We've tested it for years and years, and it's our go-to, available in the Law Abiding Biker store. Link in the description below. And just a quick reminder, we have our very popular routine oil change and maintenance on Harley-Davidson, both Milwaukee-Eight and on your twin cams. And links will be in the description below. Save some money, do it yourself. All right, and he's getting his exhaust back up in place there. Don't forget, you've got O2 sensors on both the front and rear head on the back side there. And that once you get them finger started, you can finish them with a 9/16" box end wrench. All right, don't forget, on your exhaust headers, you've got gaskets up in there. They're crush washers, basically. Just make sure they look good. You can reuse them, but that's up to you. And then, of course, we put the flanges over and got both nuts started on both headers there. And before we actually tighten the headers to the head all the way, you want to make sure and leave those loose, because you'll never get your main support clamp here holes lined up. You want to get those lined up first, because they go over a stud there, and you need a little bit of wiggle room. And you got that all lined up. And he'll tighten that nut down with a 1/2" socket. And of course, going up in there with his 1/2" socket. And when you're tightening these flange nuts down, just make sure you go back and forth. Don't just tighten one side down and then the other side. You want that flange to go down on the crush washer evenly. And you don't have to tighten these very much at all. Do not over tighten them. These exhausts seal up just fine. Otherwise, you stand a chance of breaking or backing out your stud. And of course, you'll do the same thing for the front header. All right, and don't forget your main crossover clamp there, 9/16 socket. He's gonna snug that down. All right, and then he's gonna go back on with his muffler there. And don't forget the 2 bolts for your muffler support. And he'll tighten those down with a 1/2" socket. All right, and don't forget to put your heat shields back on. And of course, there's hose clamps around those. Just like when we took them off, he'll get those all secured. And one tip is just barely snug those hose clamps once you get everything lined up. If you tighten them too much, your exhaust will expand and snap those. All right, and going on with his intake back plate there. There's 3 bolts. He's gonna get them finger started here. All right, just going on with his intake back plate there. There's 3 bolts to put in. They're all 5/32 hex head. They all have blue Loctite on them. And don't forget your 2 crank breather bolts there. 1 in the front and 1 crank breather bolt in the rear. And he'll tighten both those down with a 7/16" socket. Finish that one and move up to the front one, and blue Loctite on both of those. And he'll go on with his crank breather tubes there. 1 there and 1 on the front there. All right, going on with his air cleaner there. And there's 3 bolts he's getting finger started. And he'll tighten those 3 down with a 3/8" socket. And going back on with his air cleaner cover there. 1 bolt through the center. Tighten it down with a Torx T40. And I'll finish off by snapping his Screaming Eagle plate into place. All right, just going back up with his floorboard. Of course, a front and rear support, and he's got blue Loctite on those bolts. And just lining up the rear support there. And going in with his 5/16 hex head to tighten both support bolts down. And just going back into place with his right saddlebag here. And of course, he'll get it locked down and lined up there with his 2 saddlebag bolts. Okay, so we've got everything installed. Of course, we don't fire the bike up yet because we need to tune it for the new configuration. We are using our beloved Fuel Pack 3, sold right in the law-abiding biker store. Please consider purchasing it directly from us. We have them in stock, ready to ship. If you appreciate this video and all the free videos and podcasts we put out, just trying to help as many bikers as we can worldwide, and that helps support us. And then we're going to show you how to get this set up and how to actually tune the bike. And so we just need access to the left side. We already took the saddlebag off, of course, and we'll just pop that side cover. And then you're looking for the bottom gray plug. That's your main diagnostic port. And you'll pop the rubber plug out of it. And of course, it's all CAN bus plug and play. So that only goes one way. You want to hear the click. That's it to actually install the hardware. Now we'll have to get everything set up. And you can also zip tie it up there if you like. Also, one thing I'll note is once you use this on a bike and you set it up with the app, it is married to this bike and this VIN, and it can't be used on another bike. All right, as we tune the bike here, you're definitely going to want a Biker Gripper cell phone motorcycle mount on your bike. That's right, right in the law-abiding biker store. The sexiest, strongest, sleekest motorcycle mount on the market. We've got chrome black, perch mount, universal mount, all kinds of options for you guys. 18 pounds grip strength. Watch how fast he can get this phone in and out. No proprietary case and none of those ugly straps like all those cheap ones on Amazon. Again, the Biker Gripper, I will link to it in the description below. All right, so we've got the Fuel Pack 3 installed and we're ready to pair to via Bluetooth to a phone. He's going to turn the ignition on. All right, he's going to go into his settings. Then he's going to go into Bluetooth and he's going to look for you see right there, the VINs popping up. That's the one he wants to hit. That is the Fuel Pack 3 marrying with the VIN on this bike. And we do have a full, very detailed and popular tutorial video on the Fuel Pack 3. I will link to it in the description below if you want further detail on this app and how everything works. All right, and you can see he's connected there now. He can now open up the Fuel Pack 3 app. You just need to download it, of course. All right, and the app is now opened. Once you open the app, it should automatically connect and go to this screen. All right, so the first thing you want to go to is search for a map. And all we have to do at this point is pick our exhaust because we're basically going to create just a base map and store it just in case we need to go back to it. And so we've got SVT Bone Shaker mufflers on here. That's the only thing it's going to make you pick. All right, and you can see program bike with this map at the bottom. And again, you're just picking exhaust. Gives you a general warning. You can go ahead and hit continue. And you can see it's transferring the map to the FP3. And now you can see the next screen is flashing the new map to the bike. And so now you see it's waiting for the bike to go off. So we turn the bike off and you got to wait for about 30 seconds here. And it finished up there, you can see. And it's telling us to turn the bike on. All right, and that map is now officially transferred. And so that map will be in there stored, and we can always flash back to our base map if we have any issues down the road. All right, so now we're going to go into view and edit maps. And you can see there's been some other maps stored on this bike. There's multiple slots. The most recent is slot number 3, and that's the one we did. So that's the one we want to go ahead and go into. All right, and so the only thing we need to pick is the camshaft. So he's going to go into that. And he's going to scroll down and looking for S&S there. And you see the 465 GNC, that's for gear or chain driven, so it doesn't matter. He's going to select that for the M8. He's going to hit done. And now he's going to go ahead, upper right hand corner, the lightning bolt, and he's going to flash this so that it accepts the new cam. And it goes pretty much through the same thing. We're going to transfer the map from the phone to the Fuel Pack 3. And there it is, flashing the new map to the bike. It's going to want you to turn the bike off and just finishing up there. And now turn the bike on, it says. And again, waiting for that Bluetooth connection. And there it is. He'll go done. All right, now he'll go back into viewer edit maps. And we want to see if everything took and that it looks good. And you'll see in the number 3 slot, he's going to open it up. And now he'll go down into cam shafts and make sure that the appropriate cam is loaded. And you can see at the very top there, the S&S 465 GC M8. So we are good to go. All right, and we're good to go ahead and fire the bike up and make sure everything sounds good. All right, so we put the base map in, we fired the bike. Now we want to fine tune it with an auto tune. So we're back in the app, we're connected, we're going to go to auto tune. Of course, the bike is on in the ignition position. We're going to continue. So you've got 3 options: quick setup, advanced setup, or auto tune tutorial. We're going to just do quick setup, and we're going to pick slot 3, which was our map. And of course, same thing, it's going to flash the new map to the bike, which we haven't really created a map yet, but we will be. Of course, turn the bike off and turn the bike back on. All right, connected to Bluetooth, map transferred now. So we're gonna back out, everything was accepted. We're gonna go into search for maps, and now auto tune is active, as you can see. We're gonna go ahead and go continue. Okay, so now we've got an auto tune session open. When I go out and ride the bike, I'm gonna go ahead and hit auto tune and continue. This is gonna bring up my cells and my map. Now I'm gonna go ride at different speeds, different RPMs, different gears, as much as I can. A good, 20 to 30 minute ride is best. And I'm going to fill as many of those cells with colors as I can. Now it's just collecting data while I'm riding. When we come back to the shop after riding, we're going to go ahead and flash it so it can actually accept that auto tune. Nice thing about having the Fuel Pack 3 app open on your phone and up in the Biker Gripper cell phone motorcycle mount is you're going to swipe left. You'll see that there's multiple screens, and you can actually adjust each of these complications basically to your liking to display what type of data from your engine real time as it's running as you're going down the road. So another reason to have your phone up there in a Biker Gripper. Okay, so I basically went out riding, and about a 40-minute ride. Just make sure you just floor it and let off in different gears, different RPMs, high RPMs, low RPMs. You want as much variations. You'll see that gray box when I'm riding actually bouncing around trying to build the cells, and then the colors are cells that have been built. Now obviously the bike is just gathering data and it's not running well, so you'll know when you start it after you put the cam in. You're going to realize it runs like crap, and it should, because it's building cells and it's trying to figure out what it needs to do to auto tune it and correct all that. So now that we have that built, we're going to go ahead and flash the bike. All right, so he's going to go ahead and go up and hit the flash button there. So it's asking us if we want to apply the learned values on that, and go ahead, he's going to apply. So it's doing just what it did before, flashing new map to bike. Of course, our ignition is in the on position. Wants us to turn the bike off. Just finishing up there, waiting for the Bluetooth connection, turn the bike on. There we go, we made a connection and map has been transferred. So now we're going to go ahead and X out of auto tune, because we're done for now. And we're going to turn it off, continue, and now we're out of auto tune there. And now it's going to flash the new map to the bike, telling us, of course, the map's already there, but now it's just telling it to go out of auto tune mode. Again, turn the bike off, finishing up, and we'll turn the bike back on. All right, and there we're out of auto tune mode now. All right, so we actually took that auto tune and flashed the bike with what I gathered so far. So it's in the FP3, and the bike should run significantly better, good in fact. Now, we could have just left the auto tune open. We would have flashed what data we gathered already, just like we did. And instead of turning auto tune off, we could have left it on, and we could have did multiple trips, multiple days. And each time you get back from a trip, you could just flash whatever new auto tune information there is. So at this point, we've flashed it. We've got the auto tune. If we wanted to, we could start over and in slot 4 build a whole new auto tune map. But that's completely up to you. You just got to check how the bike runs, and if you want finer tuning, you can always do that. All right, so after the auto tune, we flashed it out in the field, and then I was able to take another 20-minute ride back to the shop here, and I will tell you that it was 100% different. As soon as we flashed it, of course it should be, because it auto tuned, and this thing is running perfectly. Very pleased with that map we built, and just awesome. Highly recommend putting this cam, and if you can, the cam gear upgrade. You won't be disappointed. Also, I'll just quickly say that now that that's in there, you'll definitely want to be running this for optimum performance and that power band, up above 3,000, really kicks in about 3,500 up to 4,000. You'll definitely be able to pop the throttle there and feel that front wheel really getting light. So have fun with it. All right, your journey's not done on the channel. I'm going to pop a couple videos on the screen here for you. Hopefully something useful or entertaining. Heck, maybe both. At any rate, when you're done watching videos, make sure you get out there and ride every chance you get, Bikeaholics. Peace.
Wake up and lace up my sneakers, I'm always dressed to kill. Each time I speak, I'm at peak to bring me some extra ears. Feel it in my soul, in my sleep, I breathe till the winds get sealed. Don't go while the rest sit still, beast mode on a run all year. Work till the funds all here, can't stop till the path all clear. Slim run a sweatshop and a pet shop, cause the dogs all here.